The morning sun of Xylaris cast a warm, golden hue over the city, reflecting off the crystalline towers and illuminating the flowing streams of light that ran through the streets. Ethan woke early, as was his habit, and prepared for the day ahead. Unlike Earth, Xylaris had no conventional clocks, but the rhythm of the city itself guided the timing of daily activities. He took a moment to admire the view from his quarters. The city was alive in a way he had never seen before. Buildings shimmered, colors shifted subtly, and creatures of strange forms moved gracefully along the streets. Today would be different. Ethan was scheduled to attend the first council meeting with Queen Lyra presiding. The other delegates whispered that this council determined major decisions for the planet, including trade, defense, and diplomacy. It was said that few humans had ever been invited to participate, and even fewer were treated as equals. Ethan felt a mix of anticipation and responsibility. He was here not as a visitor, but as a bridge between two worlds. When he entered the council chamber, he was struck by its grandeur. The room was circular, with the walls lined by floating platforms that displayed holographic maps of distant planets. Delegates from Xylaris and nearby systems were already seated, their eyes turning to him as he took his place. At the center of the room, elevated slightly above all others, sat Queen Lyra. Her posture was regal, but her eyes flicked toward him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. "Welcome, human," she said, her voice clear and commanding. "We begin shortly." Ethan nodded, bowing respectfully. The meeting commenced with formal introductions and procedural discussions. While the others spoke in formal, calculated tones, Ethan noticed patterns and gaps in the council's plans. He saw inefficiencies, opportunities in areas where human insight could complement Xylarian strategy. When the discussion turned to defense protocols, Ethan raised his hand. "If I may," he said. "On Earth, we have used layered defense strategies in situations where one layer alone could be overwhelmed. Perhaps Xylaris could implement a combination of energy shields and mobile defense units, coordinated through your central intelligence system." There was a pause, followed by murmurs among the delegates. Ethan expected skepticism, perhaps even dismissal. But Queen Lyra's gaze remained steady. She inclined her head slightly. "Explain further, human." Ethan outlined his idea, detailing how small, agile units could support stationary defenses, creating redundancy and flexibility in the event of an attack. He emphasized that this method required trust and communication among all layers, but could dramatically improve resilience. By the end of his explanation, the room was silent. Lyra studied him carefully, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "You are inventive and brave to speak so plainly in front of council elders. I will consider your plan seriously." Ethan felt a surge of relief. More importantly, he sensed that he had earned her respect. In the culture of Xylaris, where formality and caution often dominated, this was no small achievement. After the council concluded, Lyra requested Ethan remain with her for a private tour. This was unusual. The queen rarely walked the palace grounds with outsiders, let alone a human. As they left the chamber, Ethan felt both honored and nervous. They entered the palace gardens, which were more beautiful than he could have imagined. Trees with leaves like polished gems swayed gently in a breeze he could barely feel. Small creatures darted between the flora, leaving trails of sparkling dust. A river of liquid light wound through the garden, its soft glow illuminating the path. "You seem fascinated by these gardens," Lyra observed, her tone softening. "I am," Ethan admitted. "I've never seen anything like this on Earth. It's magical." Lyra smiled faintly, the blush from yesterday lingering subtly on her cheeks. "Xylaris has its wonders, but you seem to notice things others overlook. That is admirable." Ethan glanced at her, sensing that she spoke sincerely. "I notice beauty where it exists, and honesty, too. That includes you, Your Majesty." Lyra paused, the wind lifting a few strands of her shimmering hair. "You speak boldly, human. Few dare to be so direct." "I think boldness and honesty often go hand in hand," Ethan replied, "especially when something or someone is worth noticing." For a moment, neither spoke. The air was filled with the soft hum of the palace and the gentle rustle of the gardens. Ethan realized that despite their differences in species, culture, and language, they understood each other on a fundamental level. Their walk continued into a part of the gardens that had not been designed for visitors. Here the trees were taller, their leaves denser, and the creatures more curious. A small fox-like being with luminous fur approached Ethan cautiously. It sniffed his hand before darting back into the undergrowth. Lyra watched the interaction with amusement. "You are calm around all creatures," she said, "even those that could be dangerous. That is rare among humans." "I try to observe before acting," Ethan said. "Fear often comes from misunderstanding. If you take time to understand, fear fades." Lyra's eyes softened, and she looked at him with a gaze that seemed almost human. "Perhaps you are more like us than you realize. Or perhaps you are simply different." They reached a serene pool at the center of the garden. The water was clear, reflecting the twin moons that hung in Zalaris's sky. Ethan knelt at the edge, testing the temperature. It was warm and soothing, unlike any water he had touched before. Lyra sat nearby, watching him. "Humans often underestimate the value of patience and observation," she said. "Yet you seem to embody it," Ethan smiled. "I try to learn from everyone I meet. Including you, Your Majesty." Lyra's blush deepened. She looked away, focusing on the reflection of the moons in the water. "It is unusual to find a human who seeks understanding without hidden motives. That intrigues me." As the day passed, Ethan and Lyra continued their tour. He learned about Xylarian technology, history, and art. She observed how he asked questions, how he listened, and how he expressed curiosity without judgment. The more she watched him, the more she realized that he was not like other humans she had encountered. He was courageous, sincere, and capable of seeing beyond appearances. During a quiet moment, a sudden tremor shook the gardens. Trees swayed violently, and a small section of the pathway collapsed. Ethan reacted instinctively, stepping toward Lyra to shield her. She in turn extended her hands, her powers manipulating the ground to stabilize them both. The tremor passed quickly, leaving behind minor damage, yet the shared danger created a moment of connection. Lyra looked at Ethan, her expression unreadable, but her eyes betrayed a hint of admiration. "You are fearless," she said softly. "I only reacted," Ethan replied. "Fear rarely helps in moments like that." Lyra nodded, though her gaze lingered on him longer than necessary. For the first time in her long life, she felt a strange mixture of trust and curiosity toward a human. She had seen humans before, but none had stirred her emotions like this. There was something about his honesty, his bravery, and his gentle respect that fascinated her. As they continued, Ethan shared stories of Earth, the oceans, mountains, deserts, and skies. He spoke of human culture, of struggles and triumphs, and the desire to explore beyond their home planet. Lyra listened intently, occasionally asking questions that revealed her intelligence and curiosity. "You humans are strange," she said at one point. "You are fragile in some ways, yet resilient in others. You fear, yet you act with courage, and you speak freely, even when it is unexpected." "That is because we have no choice but to be bold sometimes," Ethan replied. "Exploration, survival, and progress require it." Lyra studied him in silence, her blush returning faintly. "Perhaps there is more to humans than I thought, perhaps. There is more to you than any human I have met." The sun, or Xylaris's version of it, began to set, casting long shadows across the gardens. Ethan realized he had spent the entire day with the Queen, learning, observing, and sharing. The bond between them had grown in subtle ways, marked by trust, respect, and genuine curiosity. "You will dine with us tonight," Lyra said finally. "I wish to continue our discussions in private." Ethan bowed slightly, honored by the invitation. "I would be glad to, Your Majesty." As the palace prepared for evening, Ethan returned to his quarters briefly to rest. Yet his mind was filled with thoughts of the Queen, her intelligence, her courage, her surprising warmth. He realized that their connection was rare, something that went beyond diplomacy. It was a bond built on mutual respect, admiration, and the curiosity that comes from truly seeing another being. Meanwhile, Lyra reflected on Ethan in her private chambers. She had ruled Zalaris for centuries, yet this human had made her blush, made her laugh softly, and made her question assumptions about humans. He was sincere, brave, and unafraid to express himself. And perhaps most astonishingly, she found herself looking forward to his presence. For both human and Queen, the day had been extraordinary. They had discovered common ground in a world far from Earth, and a bond had begun to form. One that might change not only their lives, but the future of two worlds. The morning on Zalaris began quietly. almost deceptively so. The crystalline towers reflected the soft golden light, and the flowing streams of liquid energy pulsed gently through the city. From the palace gardens it looked as if the world itself were at peace. Yet beneath the beauty, whispers of danger stirred. Reports from scouts had arrived overnight. A coalition of alien empires, long rivals of Zelaris, were amassing fleets near the planet's borders. Their intent was clear. They wanted Xylaris's resources and strategic location. Ethan awoke with a sense of urgency. Unlike humans, he had never faced the threat of an entire alien coalition, yet he understood strategy, tactics, and the principles of leadership. Today, he would see if his knowledge could make a difference. The palace's communication chamber was vast, circular, and lined with floating holographic screens. On each screen, the movements of enemy fleets were displayed alongside Xylaris's defensive positions. Queen Lyra stood at the center, her presence commanding, yet her usual calm was tinged with concern. "Human," she said, her voice steady but serious. "You have observed our defenses. You understand our council's discussions. What would you suggest against this threat?" Ethan stepped forward, studying the holographic maps. Ships moved in calculated formations, and energy signatures revealed their attack patterns. "Your Majesty," he said, "I've studied your current defense system. It is powerful, but it relies heavily on static energy shields. If the enemy coordinates a multi-pronged attack, some areas may be vulnerable." "I propose a layered defense," Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Ethan pointed to the holographic fleet of Xylaris. "We can divide the defense into 3 layers. First, stationary energy shields, as you currently have. Second, mobile defense units that can intercept and react to fast-moving threats. Third, human-inspired tactical strategies, deception, feints, and rapid redeployment to confuse the enemy. If we integrate your technology with these strategies, we can create flexibility and resilience." The council murmured among themselves. They had not expected a human to suggest a complete restructuring of Xylaris's defense. Some were skeptical, others curious. Lyra's eyes, however, never left Ethan. She had seen humans act bravely before, but none had combined intelligence, strategy, and courage so naturally. "You are bold to speak so directly," she said, "and yet I see sense in your proposal. We will implement your layered defense system immediately." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This was no longer a matter of diplomacy. It was a matter of survival. Over the next few hours, Ethan worked closely with Xylarian engineers, commanders, and strategists. He adapted their technology to integrate human concepts, finding ways to combine intuition, improvisation, and rapid response with the aliens' advanced systems. Lyra observed him silently, occasionally asking questions or offering insight. "You think differently than we do," she remarked during a brief pause. "Your perspective, it is unusual but effective." Ethan smiled faintly. Sometimes a fresh perspective can reveal solutions that experience alone cannot. By midday, the first enemy ships appeared on Xylaris's radar. Their arrival was swift, organized, and clearly intended to overwhelm the planet's defenses. Ethan and Lyra stood together in the command chamber, overseeing the deployment of the layered defense system. The battle began with a roar of energy. Enemy ships fired plasma beams, attempting to breach the outer shields. Xylaris's stationary defenses held initially, but the sheer number of attackers created openings. Ethan's mobile units, guided by his strategy, intercepted fast-moving threats, redirecting them away from critical structures. Lyra watched him carefully, noting his calm under pressure. "You do not hesitate," she said. "Many humans would freeze in the face of such odds." "I focus on solutions, not fear," Ethan replied. Their coordination worked. Enemy ships were repelled, and the initial waves were absorbed without significant damage. Yet the coalition had more tricks. They deployed decoy ships to distract the defenses while launching a hidden strike force aimed at the city's core. The council advisors panicked, unsure how to respond. Ethan quickly assessed the situation. "We must adapt," he said. "Divert the mobile units to intercept the decoys, while reinforcing the central shields with additional energy nodes. Then deploy rapid response teams to counter the hidden strike force." Lyra's eyes widened. "Do it, now." The order was executed flawlessly. Under Ethan's guidance, Xylaris's defenses adapted in real time. The hidden strike force was neutralized before reaching the core. and the decoys were eliminated with minimal damage. The council, watching in awe, realized that this human had just saved the city. After the initial wave, Ethan and Lyra surveyed the damage. While some structures had been harmed, the city had survived largely intact. More importantly, Xylaris had endured an attack that could have destroyed it without human insight. "You have saved Xylaris today," Lyra said quietly, her eyes locking with his. There was a depth of gratitude, respect, and something unspoken in her gaze. "Few would have done what you did. Fewer still with such calm and clarity." Ethan shook his head. "I only did what any human would do if they had the chance to protect others. Fear is natural, but action defines us." Lyra's blush returned, faint but noticeable. It was unusual for a queen to show such emotion, especially in front of witnesses. Yet she could not hide it from Ethan. "You speak wisely and you act bravely. That combination? It is rare." The day continued with smaller skirmishes testing the resilience of Xylaris' defenses. Ethan stayed at the command center, guiding units, adjusting strategies, and observing enemy tactics. His ability to adapt quickly, his understanding of human unpredictability, and his courage inspired not only the humans but also the Xylarian commanders. During a brief lull, Lyra approached him. "You are remarkable, human. Your presence changes the way we think, not only of strategy but of possibilities. You see potential in places we see only risk." Ethan felt a surge of warmth at her words. "I believe every challenge can be overcome with cooperation, courage, and creativity. And sometimes, with honesty and trust." Lyra's eyes lingered on him. She could feel a connection growing, something beyond duty, beyond protocol. This human did not just assist her. He challenged her assumptions, made her see differently, and treated her not as a distant queen, but as someone capable of thought, feeling, and connection. As evening approached, a final wave of enemy ships appeared on the horizon. They were large, heavily armed, and clearly intended to test the limits of Xylaris' defenses. Ethan and Lyra prepared for the confrontation together. "You will fight alongside us?" Lyra asked, her voice calm but with a note of concern. Ethan nodded. "If I can help, I will. Xylaris is no longer just a mission or a duty. It is a place I wish to protect." The battle that followed was intense. Beams of energy streaked across the sky. Explosions shook the ground and the air was filled with the sound of engines and energy weapons. Ethan coordinated with the Xylarian units, predicting enemy movements and adjusting strategies in real time. He moved through the command chamber with confidence, unafraid to suggest bold maneuvers that others would have hesitated to attempt. Lyra watched him, awe mixed with admiration. She had faced countless battles in her long life, yet she had never encountered anyone, human or otherwise, who combined intelligence, courage, and honesty in such a way. Her respect for him deepened, and a warmth spread through her that she had not expected. By nightfall, the enemy had been repelled. Xylaris stood battered but unbroken. The city shimmered under the twin moons, its defenses holding strong thanks to Ethan's guidance. The council was amazed, and Lyra's advisors whispered among themselves about the unexpected brilliance of a human. Lyra approached Ethan privately, away from the other delegates. "Today you have shown the courage and wisdom of not just a human, but a true ally," she said softly. "Few beings inspire hope the way you do." Ethan shook his head humbly. "I only acted, but I will not deny that standing beside you, it felt right. Protecting Xylaris felt right. And I admire you, Your Majesty, more than words can describe." Lyra's blush deepened, this time with a mix of surprise and emotion. "You speak openly. Few dare, yet I find myself moved by your words." The moment was quiet, intimate, and profound. For the first time, the Queen allowed herself to see the human not just as a guest, but as someone extraordinary, someone whose presence could change the course of events and perhaps even her own heart. As the night settled over Xylaris, Ethan and Lyra stood together looking at the stars. The planet had survived, the enemy repelled, and a bond had formed between human and queen that went beyond duty, beyond protocol. It was a bond built on courage, honesty, respect, and admiration. In the quiet of the night, both human and queen understood that the challenges ahead would be many. But they also realized that together they could face anything, even the mightiest forces of the galaxy. And somewhere deep in their hearts, They both sensed the spark of something more, an unexpected connection that could grow into trust, friendship, or perhaps even love, as the events of Xylaris unfolded. The sky over Xylaris was a canvas of swirling colors, lit by the twin suns as they dipped toward the horizon. The city, though resilient, bore scars from the previous attacks. Buildings shimmered with repaired crystalline panels, streams of light flowed unevenly in some areas, and smoke from minor damage drifted lazily across the gardens. Despite this, the atmosphere buzzed with determination. The people of Xylaris were preparing for what they sensed would be the enemy's final assault. Ethan stood at the command center beside Queen Lyra. His eyes scanned the holographic display of the approaching fleets. The enemy had learned from the previous encounters. They moved with precision, attempting to exploit the smallest weaknesses. But Ethan remained calm, analyzing each formation, each trajectory, and each potential threat. "Human," Lyra said, her voice steady but laced with tension. "This may be our most dangerous engagement yet. Are you ready to stand with us?" Ethan nodded firmly. "I didn't come here to watch. I came to fight, and to help you protect this world." Lyra's gaze lingered on him, a hint of admiration and something softer in her expression. "Then we shall stand together." As the enemy fleet emerged fully on the horizon, the city's defenses activated. Energy shields shimmered and mobile units sprang into motion. Ethan coordinated their movements with precision, calling out adjustments and predicting enemy strategies. The first wave of attacks hit hard, but Xylaris' defenses, guided by Ethan's strategic insights, absorbed the impact. Despite the chaos, Ethan noticed something the Xylarian commanders missed: a small squad of enemy ships breaking formation and heading directly toward the palace. Without hesitation, he pointed to the threat. "Central shields cannot hold them alone. We need to intercept before they reach the city core." Lyra's eyes sharpened. "Then we intercept. Lead the operation." Ethan gave orders quickly, dividing mobile units into precise groups. He combined their agility with Xylaris' energy shields to create temporary barriers, while specialized units intercepted the approaching squad. The operation succeeded, but just barely. One ship breached a secondary barrier and crashed near the palace gardens. Ethan moved quickly, assessing the damage and ensuring no civilians were harmed. "You act decisively," Lyra said quietly, observing him. "Most would hesitate, fearing mistakes. You do not. I focus on solutions, not fear," Ethan replied. "Hesitation can cost lives." As the battle raged, Ethan noticed the enemy had launched a diversionary attack. A massive fleet appeared near the northern city perimeter, drawing much of Xylaris' defenses away. He turned to Lyra. "They are testing our response. If we leave the core, the diversion may succeed. We need a plan." Lyra considered his words carefully. "Then we will split forces. You lead the counter to the diversion. I will reinforce the core defenses. Together we protect everything important." Ethan felt a surge of respect for the queen. Even under immense pressure, she remained calm, decisive, and courageous. "Agreed. Let's move." Ethan's group navigated the skies in agile defense units weaving between enemy fire. He gave clear, precise instructions, adjusting formations in real time. Xylarian pilots followed his lead, impressed by his understanding of tactics and his ability to predict the enemy's moves. The diversion was neutralized, but the enemy was relentless. During a critical moment, a massive enemy cruiser appeared, targeting the central palace. Lyra's voice came over the comms, calm but urgent. "Human, the palace is in danger." "Can you help?" Ethan scanned the battlefield. The cruiser was heavily shielded and armed with devastating energy weapons. "Traditional attacks would fail. We need a combined strike," he said. "Use your energy amplification to destabilize their shields. I'll coordinate a rapid strike team to exploit the opening." Lyra hesitated for only a moment before nodding. She activated her energy powers, focusing intensely. The cruiser's shields flickered, creating a narrow window. Ethan's strike team moved with precision, targeting the cruiser's weak points. Explosions rocked the ship and it began to retreat, disabled but not destroyed. The battle was far from over, but Xylaris' defenders had gained the upper hand. Yet even in victory, danger loomed. A small contingent of enemy soldiers attempted a stealth landing near the palace gardens, intending to strike directly at Lyra. Ethan noticed them just in time. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward the landing site. Lyra's voice came through the comms filled with concern. Human, wait. It's too dangerous. Ethan ignored the warning. I cannot stand by while they reach you. He reached the site just as the soldiers were about to breach the palace perimeter. Using quick thinking and physical agility, he intercepted them, disarming and incapacitating them before they could act. Lyra arrived moments later, her energy powers ready, yet she found Ethan already in control of the situation. You risked yourself, she said, her voice soft, a blush rising on her cheeks. Most humans would not act so fearlessly. Ethan shook his head. I protect life when I can. That includes yours. Lyra's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability showing through her usual regal demeanor. You are extraordinary. The battle continued through the night with waves of enemy forces pressing the city. Ethan remained at the forefront of strategy and action, constantly moving, thinking, and adapting. His human ingenuity complemented Xylaris's advanced technology in ways no one could have anticipated. The city's defenses held, and gradually the enemy began to retreat, recognizing that Xylaris was not so easily conquered. By dawn, the skies cleared, revealing the battered but resilient city. Xylaris had survived. The citizens emerged cautiously, witnessing the aftermath. Ethan, exhausted but alert, watched as Queen Lyra approached him. Her expression was unreadable at first, then softened with a mixture of relief, admiration, and something more profound. You have saved countless lives tonight, she said, her voice calm but filled with emotion. Not just with strategy, but with courage. You stand apart from all humans I have known. Ethan shook his head. I only did what anyone should do. Protect others when possible. Fight when necessary. Lyra stepped closer, her blush faint but unmistakable. Your words are humble, yet your actions speak louder than any speech. You are unlike any human I have met. Brave, honest, and wise. For a moment the two stood in silence, the battlefield around them quiet now, with only the soft hum of Xylaris's energy streams. Ethan realized that the Queen, for all her power and authority, was moved by his presence, not just by what he had done, but by who he was. I admire you, Your Majesty, Ethan said softly. Not just as a queen, but as someone remarkable. Someone worthy of respect and, perhaps, friendship. Lyra's blush deepened and she looked away for a moment, gathering her composure. You speak boldly, human. If you dare to be so open, yet I find myself drawn to your honesty, your courage, your heart. The morning sun rose fully, bathing the city in warm light. Citizens emerged from their homes, witnessing the palace intact, the city still standing. They whispered among themselves about the human who had fought alongside their queen, guiding the defense with wisdom and bravery. For many, it was the first time a human had shown such skill, such courage, and such understanding. Lyra turned to Ethan. Her usual composure softened. You have changed the way I see humans, perhaps the way I see the world. Ethan smiled, feeling the bond between them deepen. Perhaps we can learn from each other. Perhaps together we can make things better for both our worlds. The Queen's blush lingered, a subtle warmth that contrasted with her usual regal demeanor. For the first time, she allowed herself to consider a human not as a guest, a visitor, or a diplomat, but as someone extraordinary, someone whose courage, honesty, and ingenuity had saved her people and earned her trust. As the city began repairs, Ethan and Lyra walked through the gardens together, observing the recovery. The threat from the coalition had been repelled, but the bond formed through shared danger, mutual respect, and admiration would endure. Ethan realized that he had not only helped save a world, but he had also earned the trust and admiration of a queen unlike any other, and for Lyra, she recognized that perhaps humans were capable of more than she had ever imagined. They were courageous, inventive, and most importantly, sincere in ways that could change the course of history. That day, the foundations for a new alliance were laid, not only between humans and Xylaris, but between two extraordinary beings, one human and one queen, whose bond had been forged in the crucible of battle, respect, and unexpected admiration, and somewhere deep in their hearts both knew that this was only the beginning. Ethan stepped off the shuttle, his boots sinking slightly into the smooth, glass-like surface of Xylaris's landing platform. The air shimmered with a faint blue glow, and he could feel the gentle hum of energy vibrating beneath the ground. Xylaris was unlike anything he had ever seen. The planet stretched endlessly with structures that seemed to float in midair, towers spiraling into the sky, connected by bridges made of crystalline filaments that glimmered in the sun. Rivers of flowing light ran through the city like veins pulsating softly. As part of the human delegation, Ethan had been trained to remain composed during first contacts. Yet, despite all his preparation, a knot of anticipation tightened in his chest. The delegation's mission was straightforward on paper: establish peaceful relations, negotiate trade agreements, and foster understanding. But Zalaris had a reputation. Stories told by previous explorers spoke of an alien queen who was untouchable, a ruler whose beauty and intelligence had never been matched. Most humans approached with fear, some with awe, and a few with curiosity. Ethan carried a mix of all three. He followed the other diplomats through the grand entrance of the palace. The structure towered above them, made of a translucent material that seemed alive. Light passed through the walls in shifting patterns, reflecting colors that danced across the floor. Inside, the air smelled faintly sweet, like a mixture of flowers and ozone. A tall Xylarian guard approached, moving with a grace that seemed both effortless and intimidating. Their features were humanoid but with distinct alien traits: elongated limbs, eyes that shimmered like polished gemstones, and a subtle iridescent sheen to their skin. The guard nodded to the delegation and gestured them forward. "You will wait in the Hall of Stars," the guard said, their voice musical yet commanding. "The Queen will see you shortly." Ethan nodded, trying not to stare too openly at the room. The Hall of Stars was vast, with ceilings that arched high above. Crystalline chandeliers hung suspended without chains, refracting light in patterns that resembled constellations. Soft flowing music filled the hall, created not by instruments but by the vibrations of the building itself. The walls seemed to hum in harmony, as if the entire structure was alive. Ethan felt both excitement and anxiety. This was the moment he had trained for, yet nothing could have prepared him for the reality of Zalaris. He glanced at the other humans, noting their calm professionalism. Each of them carried themselves with the discipline of Earth's best diplomats. But Ethan felt his attention drifting. Something was about to happen, he could feel it, and then she appeared. Queen Lyra entered the hall with a presence that immediately drew all eyes. She was taller than a human, but not unreasonably so. Her skin had a soft, luminescent quality, shimmering with subtle hues that changed as she moved. Her hair, or what resembled hair, flowed like a living wave, shifting colors from deep violet to soft silver. Her eyes were large and expressive, with irises that seemed to hold galaxies within them. Ethan froze, momentarily unable to speak. Every training session, every rehearsal of proper diplomatic conduct vanished in an instant. Lyra moved with a calm authority that demanded attention, yet there was a gentle elegance in her gestures. Her robes, made of a material that seemed liquid in motion, flowed around her, catching the light in mesmerizing patterns. For a heartbeat, Ethan could do nothing. His mind raced, trying to formulate a proper greeting. Words failed him. Then, without thinking, his voice escaped, raw and honest. "You're so beautiful I can't even speak." The hall fell silent. Ethan's colleagues exchanged shocked glances. Humans did not usually speak so openly, and certainly not in such a personal, direct way to an alien queen. Lyra herself paused, her expressive eyes widening slightly. A faint blush appeared across her luminous cheeks, a gesture rare among her kind, almost human in its vulnerability. For a moment, no one moved. Ethan felt a surge of panic. He had committed a breach of etiquette, and he knew it. Yet, as he looked at her, he realized she was not angry. She was intrigued. Lyra's voice was soft, almost a whisper, yet it resonated through the hall. "You speak honestly, human." Ethan swallowed hard, nodding. I have no desire to flatter. I only speak what I see and feel." A ripple of conversation passed among the Xylarian guards and advisors, but they held their distance. Lyra raised a hand, and the hall quieted once more. "You are brave," she said, "and honest. That is unusual." Her voice carried a weight of centuries, yet it held warmth that surprised Ethan. Most humans speak in riddles, or with words meant to protect themselves. "You do not." Ethan felt a flicker of relief. "I believe honesty is the best way to start understanding one another." Lyra studied him, her gaze sharp yet soft. "Perhaps. You are the human I will observe closely." The delegation was guided to a seating area, As Lyra and her advisors began formal introductions, Ethan listened politely, taking in details about Xylarian culture, trade protocols, and the political landscape. Yet his attention kept returning to the Queen. She was both intimidating and approachable, regal yet human in subtle ways. Every now and then she would glance at him with an expression that was hard to interpret, a mixture of curiosity, amusement, and something softer that he could not quite name. After the formal introductions, Lyra dismissed the delegation for a private tour. Ethan was allowed to accompany her personally. They moved through the palace gardens, which were unlike any earth garden he had ever seen. Trees floated above ground, their roots glowing faintly in the air. Flowers sang in gentle tones harmonizing with the ambient music of the palace. Streams of liquid light meandered through the garden, and creatures of impossible shapes moved gracefully along the paths. As they walked, Ethan asked questions about Xylarian history, culture, and science. Lyra answered patiently, clearly enjoying his curiosity. He noticed that she smiled rarely, but when she did, it felt genuine, and the blush on her cheeks returned faintly whenever he made a sincere comment. "You humans are strange," Lyra said at one point, tilting her head. "You do not hide your feelings easily, yet you speak with caution." "Hidden, you were not cautious with me." Ethan smiled. "I think some moments deserve honesty, especially when they are extraordinary." Lyra's blush deepened, though she tried to mask it. "You are bold, human. Few would dare speak so freely to the Queen of Xylaris." "I do not wish to dare," Ethan replied. "I only wish to be genuine." The Queen paused by a shimmering pool of water that reflected the colors of the sky above. Ethan followed her gaze and saw his own reflection next to hers. In that moment, the vast differences between their species seemed smaller than the honesty they shared. For the first time in centuries, Lyra felt a strange sense of comfort. Humans had always been unpredictable, often reckless, but this human was different. He was brave, curious, and unafraid to show what he felt. The blush on her cheeks lingered longer than it should have, a subtle sign of something she could not yet name. Their walk continued into a chamber filled with floating orbs, each containing miniature simulations of distant worlds. Lyra explained the technology, and Ethan listened with fascination, occasionally asking questions that impressed even the Queen. He noticed her eyes sparkle, not just from light, but from a genuine sense of engagement. "You ask questions humans seldom ask," she said softly. "You seek to understand, not merely to observe." "That is rare," Ethan nodded. "I believe understanding is the first step to peace. And to respect." Lyra's blush returned faintly, and she turned her gaze to the floating orbs, as if to hide the emotion stirring within her. "Perhaps you are wiser than I expected." As the sun, or the equivalent of it on Xylaris, began to set, casting a soft golden hue over the crystalline city, Ethan realized he had spent hours with the Queen without noticing time passing. The palace, the gardens, and the alien architecture had all been awe-inspiring, but it was the Queen herself who had captivated him. "You should rest," Lyra said finally. "Your arrival has been long, and tomorrow will be important." Ethan bowed slightly, feeling a mixture of reverence and hope. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for allowing me, this time." Lyra inclined her head, the blush on her cheeks faint but lingering. "We shall see what tomorrow brings, human." As Ethan left the chamber, escorted back to the delegation quarters, he could not stop thinking about the Queen. She was powerful, intelligent, and commanding, but also capable of vulnerability, something rare among rulers. For the first time in his life, he felt that a human could truly connect with an alien in a way that went beyond politics, beyond duty. That night, as he lay in the sleek, alien-designed quarters, Ethan stared at the ceiling and reflected on the day. He had arrived on Xylaris expecting formalities, diplomacy, and careful observation. Instead, he had found something far more profound, a connection that transcended species, a spark of genuine understanding. And somewhere on the other side of the palace, Queen Lyra thought of the human who had dared speak honestly to her, who had made her blush in a way that no one else ever had. For the first time in centuries, she felt a curiosity and warmth that she could not ignore. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, negotiations, councils, and possibly the eyes of the galaxy upon them. But tonight, both human and Queen allowed themselves to feel something simple, something real, admiration, respect, and the first hints of a bond that could change. The morning after the battle dawned calm over Zelaris. The skies were a soft blend of violet and gold, the twin suns casting long reflections across the crystalline towers. The city, though still recovering from the recent attacks, gleamed with resilience. Citizens moved through the streets, repairing minor damage, tending to the wounded, and offering thanks to the brave defenders who had kept Xylaris safe. Ethan stood beside Queen Lyra on a high balcony overlooking the city. The air was fresh with the scent of the gardens and the warm glow of energy streams. For a moment, the events of the past days, the council meeting, the strategic preparations, the battles, and the near misses, seemed almost unreal. Yet each moment had forged a bond between human and queen, one that went beyond diplomacy, beyond duty, and into something deeply personal. "You did well," Lyra said quietly, her eyes fixed on the city below. "Braver and wiser than anyone I expected. Zelaris owes you more than I can express." Ethan shook his head. "I only did what anyone should do. I couldn't stand by while lives were at risk. I would have done the same for anyone." Lyra turned to face him, her gaze steady and thoughtful. "And yet you acted not only with courage but with understanding, patience, and insight. You see beyond the obvious, human. That is rare." Ethan smiled, feeling the warmth of her words. "Perhaps we humans can learn from each other too. And perhaps sometimes the universe brings us together so we can face challenges we couldn't face alone." Lyra's blush returned faintly, a soft pink across her cheeks. She looked away briefly, then back at him with a rare vulnerability. "I have lived centuries and faced countless threats. And yet, never have I met a being like you, one who is brave, honest, and sincere. In all ways, you have changed the way I see humans, and perhaps myself." Ethan's chest tightened slightly. He had never expected a simple human expression of admiration and gratitude to have such impact on a queen. "It means a lot to hear that," he said softly. "But you have taught me too. Leadership, patience, and strength I never fully understood until now." For a moment silence enveloped them, filled only by the gentle hum of the city and the distant sounds of rebuilding. The human and the queen, so different in species, culture, and experience, found a strange harmony in shared understanding. They had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty together, and emerged not just victorious but connected. As the morning progressed, the city's recovery continued. Ethan joined teams working to restore communications, repair damaged energy conduits, and reinforce defensive installations. He moved among the citizens, guiding, assisting, and inspiring. His presence encouraged them, showing that humans could be trusted allies capable of courage and ingenuity. Lyra observed him, noting how easily he adapted to the tasks at hand. She had expected humans to be fragile, unpredictable, or hesitant, but Ethan proved all those notions wrong. He was methodical yet flexible, brave yet thoughtful, a combination that defied expectations. Later she approached him in the central gardens where vibrant crystalline trees swayed in the gentle breeze. The destruction from the battle had left some scars, but life was returning quickly. Small creatures emerged from hiding, curious about the human who had saved their world. "You continue to impress me," Lyra said, her voice softer than usual. "Not only in battle but in every action. Your courage inspires others. Your wisdom guides them. And your heart, it touches even me." Ethan's gaze met hers. "I did not expect to find admiration here, Your Majesty. But I feel a connection I cannot explain. You are wise, strong, and remarkable. I would be honored to stand beside you, not just as an ally, but as a friend, if you would allow it." Lyra's blush deepened, a warmth spreading through her expression. She had faced countless diplomats, warriors, and advisors, yet none had moved her as he had. "You speak with honesty and courage, something rare in any being. I would welcome your friendship. And perhaps something more if the fates allow it." Ethan smiled, feeling a mix of relief and joy. "Then let us see where this path takes us." Together, the queen led him through the gardens, showing areas still recovering from the battle. As they walked, she shared her concerns about Xylaris' future, threats from neighboring systems, political intrigue, and the need to rebuild trust among allies. Ethan listened attentively, offering suggestions, insights, and strategies. Lyra noted his calm reasoning, his ability to anticipate outcomes, and his genuine care for the lives affected by their decisions. Hours passed quickly, and the bond between them deepened. It was no longer just the admiration of one for the other, but a mutual respect, trust, and a recognition of shared values. They understood that their connection was unusual, but it was also powerful. A human and a queen together could shape the future in ways neither could achieve alone. As the day drew to a close, the council convened to review the aftermath of the attacks. Reports were presented, casualties were accounted for, and rebuilding plans were approved. The delegates looked at Ethan with a mixture of awe and gratitude. The human had not only contributed to the defense of Xylaris, but had inspired confidence in a people who had long been cautious of outsiders. Lyra addressed the council, her voice steady and commanding. "We have survived not because of our technology alone, but because of courage, intelligence, and trust. And we have learned that the bonds we form, across species, across worlds, can be as powerful as any weapon." The council members nodded, some silently acknowledging the human who had proven himself invaluable. Later, in the quiet of the evening, Ethan and Lyra stood once more on the palace balcony, watching the twin moons rise over the city. The light reflected off the repaired towers, casting shimmering patterns across the gardens below. The threat had been repelled, the city was safe, and a new alliance had been forged, not just between humans and Xylaris, but between two extraordinary individuals. "You have changed my world," Lyra said softly. "Not just in battle, but in how I see trust, courage, and perhaps even love." Ethan's heart lifted. "And you have changed mine. You showed me that strength is not only in power, but in wisdom, patience, and integrity. That courage can inspire, and that honesty can create bonds stronger than any armor." Lyra smiled, a rare, genuine expression that lit her features. "Then perhaps our meeting was not by chance. Perhaps the universe intended for us to face these challenges together." Ethan nodded. "Perhaps it did, and I am glad it did." In the days that followed, Xylaris rebuilt with renewed vigor. Citizens admired the human who had defended their world with bravery and insight. Queen Lyra worked closely with Ethan, integrating his ideas into long-term plans for defense, diplomacy, and prosperity. Their partnership became a symbol of unity, courage, and the power of trust across worlds. One evening, as the twin moons rose and bathed the city in silver light, Lyra invited Ethan to the palace gardens. The air was calm, and the soft hum of energy streams filled the night. She stood before him, her expression serene yet filled with emotion. "You are extraordinary, Ethan," she said softly. "I have faced countless beings, yet none have stirred me as you have. Your courage, wisdom, and honesty, they shine brighter than any star I have seen." Ethan felt a warmth spread through him. "And you, Lyra, are remarkable. You lead with strength, compassion, and grace. You inspired me to be better, to act with courage, and to trust. I am honored to know you and to stand by your side." Lyra's blush deepened, a gentle warmth across her cheeks. "Then perhaps this is more than friendship. Perhaps it is something neither of us expected, but both have come to value." Ethan reached out, taking her hand gently. "Then let us face the future together. Whatever challenges may come, we will face them side by side." The queen smiled, her eyes shining with a mixture of admiration, trust, and something deeper, something even she could not fully name. "Yes, together." As they stood in the palace gardens under the twin moons, a new chapter began, not just for Xylaris, not just for humanity, but for the bond between a human and a queen who had come to understand and respect one another in ways neither could have predicted. The city would heal, alliances would strengthen, and the story of courage, trust, and unexpected connection would become legend. Ethan had shown that humanity, though small in the vast universe, could shine brightly when faced with challenges, brave, inventive, and honorable. And Queen Lyra had discovered that even centuries of rule and wisdom could not prepare her for the impact of a human who acted with heart, mind, and courage. Together they had forged a bond that would endure, a testament to the strength of unity, the power of honesty, and the extraordinary potential of humans when they dared to stand tall in the face of the impossible. And in the quiet glow of Xylaris's twin moons, both human and queen knew that this was only the beginning of an incredible journey, one that would change not only their worlds but the hearts of all who witnessed their courage and connection.